When you feed someone, it's in any language or any culture, it's the ultimate form of love, actually.
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah, and if one wishes to take it further, it's also to do with sex and sensuality and things like that.
We won't go into Peter Green.
No, that's right.
What is Bilson?
I see it as a sort of sensual retreat, I guess. I mean, all good restaurants, I think, are a celebration of the agricultural, but in the final analysis, it's about good food and good wine.
Why cooking?
That
Yes.
is the reason, basically. It's a book that was published in 1956. I liked what happened in Paris around the turn of the century. I loved all that, the bohemian life. I liked the Hemingway stories. So for me, going into restaurants was actually being part of that arts community. A couple of things were happening in my life. One, I'd been introduced to Georges Mora. Georges had a restaurant called Balzac.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of artists worked there. Charles Blackman used to wash the dishes and everything. I mean, George is very Parisian, and he ran a salon in Little Collins Street where the arts community started to gather. And out of that salon grew the Museum of Contemporary Art. And that included the very wealthy John Reed, Sunday Reed, that crowd. And George's great skill was to bring together the moneyed bourgeois of Melbourne, if you like, and put them together with the bohemian artists. And those two communities had a very long tradition. I did a year of economics at Monash, and then I joined the Reserve Bank, working in foreign exchange, and then my mother died, and I thought, look, I really don't want to do this. I mean, I was just being a good Melbourne Grammar School boy. So I went to George and said, look, I really want to be a chef, so what do I do? And he put me on to Johnny Walker in Sydney, and there were two very fine French chefs working there, Paul Harbelow and John Ansurian. John had a two-star restaurant in France. Paul, who was a boxer in his youth, big guy, he was sort of caught in Sydney during the war. My earlier years were in a hotel in Sydney, and we had, my mother was a very good cook. My grandmother had a pastry shop in Western Victoria. So I guess that, all of those sort of influences came together. But the thing that attracted me to the intellectual powers was actually the social life that one could create around the restaurant. That's really what it was about. There is a real creativity in plating food. That's the visuals. Okay, yes. The visuals are, and then in the same way as a good painting does it, there are subconscious things that go on within that. I mean, we're doing a dish at the moment of a lobster dish using an agar-agar gel. Now, agar-agars can be hot. It can be a hot chili, but it's also a bit like pasta, so we're using it like a lasagna, but it's translucent. And so it's it's as though you're looking through a piece of glass into something that's very beautiful underneath it. There are some absolutely mind-opening experiences that one has in the restaurants if you're interested. I mean, other people I'm sure could go along and just go.
Yeah, exactly.
I go along and weep. The brilliant guys, the guys who are really good, Guy Savoy particularly, I think, have the ability to. There's that lovely Ducasse saying, to take something that's already good and turn it into something beautiful. I think the reason why the great French chefs and the Japanese get on so well is that they recognise in the food that's on the plate the relationship to season, to agriculture, to the history of the culture generally. There can be many references. There's a dish, galette de foie blonde with queue d'écrevisse, Alain Chapelle dish. He took what was a fairly stodgy local dish and transformed it into a dish that was just ethereally light and yet at the same time captured the essence of the area in which he worked. So that's what great chefs do. And we just did a series of degustation dinners called Sensuality, which is a celebration of Sydney summer, sex, all of those sort of things. Now, I don't tell them what the references in the food is.
Oh, this is not rude.
There's some no. Although there's one vulgar, but it's up to them to to work out where the what's good about so.
Tony, you artist, you. Who were your masters over those years, and did you go and do the gastronomic hippie trail of France?
Very much so, yeah. I was very lucky in about 73. We had a waiter working for us, Alain Chagny. Alain's father, Jacques, was in the resistance with Fenelon, and they introduced us to Madame Vin. Fenelon died in 56. And she introduced us to Paul Bocuse, Trois Gros, Alain Chapelle, Roger Verger, Louis Houtier, invented contemporary cooking. We sort of brought that aesthetic back with us straight away. One of my favourite moments has been with James Halliday, the very famous wine writer. James rang up and he said, "Look," he said, "it's my 40th birthday and I've got a special wine I want to bring." I think it was a 1928 No, it was a big one. So it was 28 Latour or something like that. And we said, "Okay, we can't match that, so that's fine, bring it down." So he brought it down a few days before and we stood it up and let it settle. And then just before James came, on the day before, we got some flagon wine and a bit of sugar and a bit of vinegar and things and cooked that up and let it cool down. James arrived on the day. We carefully eased the lead capsule off, carefully took the cork out, decanted the wine, refilled the bottle with the cask wine and vinegar mixture that we'd made up the day before, put the cork back in, put the lead capsule back on, presented it at a table, opened it at a table, poured it into the glass. James said, oh, jeez. He said, "Oh, no." I said, "Well, what's the matter, James?" He said, he said, "It's fucked." He said, "It's completely fucked." I said, "Oh, look, don't worry." He said, "This is Anders Osbeck," said this. He said, "We've just opened a bottle ourselves of an old wine to himself that Tony was going to have with his lunch. Have a try of that one." He said, "Oh, okay, good." So he gave me with it. He said, he said, "That's fantastic." He said, "What's that?" And then the penny sort of dropped, He said, "Oh, you bastards."